Welcome back. I am Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are doing the Tennessee Titans 7-round mock draft. Right now, we did a full mock draft, all 256 picks, and today we are breaking down all of the Titans selections during that mock draft. Before we begin, be sure to like, subscribe, and also ring the bell to get notified whenever we drop new Titans mock drafts. We've already done a 3-round mock draft for the Titans, so go check that video out. Also, leading up to the 2024 draft, we will have other 3-round and 7-round mock drafts coming out. And we also have mock draft Monday that comes out every Monday. So be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified when those videos come out. Quickly, just to orient you a little bit on what you're looking at here. Obviously, at the very top is going to indicate what round that we're in. The name in bold, that's going to be the Titan selection. We'll get to Brock Bowers here in a second. But we wanted to include a couple of the picks before and after just to give some context of who was off the board and still available on the board. Also, to the right are some other potential options of players who we think also could be a good fit here as well for this position. So we ended up going a little bit different route. I think in our mock draft, and I could probably say, like, if the draft was tomorrow, I would probably think that if Joe Alt is available, or maybe even Olu Fashanu is available, they're going to go with him. But we decided to kind of mix it up a little bit. Also, Joe Alt was off the board here. The Arizona Cardinals ended up selecting him at the 4th overall pick.
Yes.
And so decided to potentially go a little bit different route. If they go get a guy like Brock Bowers, I mean, I think they're killing two birds with one stone. This is he is your every down tight end. You can line him up in the slot. You can line him up next to a tackle in a blocking formation. Help out with the offensive line, something that the Titans definitely need. Even though they did go and get Peter Skoronski last year. And then on top of this too, I think you give Will Levis an extremely reliable middle of the field option, and honestly could become like their best pass catcher just as a whole. So I want to throw it over to you here, Ryan, your thoughts on this pick and some of the other potential options that they could have taken.
Yeah, so for me, I love Brock Bowers as a prospect. To me, he's the best tight end prospect that we could have potentially ever seen, but I think he just fits the modern-day NFL so well. He's a great athlete at 6'4", 240, maybe a little undersized, but he has the want-to and the will to be a good run blocker. And that's very much on tape there at Georgia. They had him in line as a traditional tight end. And shoot, I mean, they even had him out as like a Z receiver sometimes if they got the matchup right. Maybe a linebacker would follow him out there. So he's athletic enough to beat safeties as well. And to me, I think that would be a matchup nightmare. I do really like the fit. I think if they can finally get Treylon Burks to stay healthy, you have him, Brock Bowers, DeAndre Hopkins. They could hopefully, depending on what Derrick Henry does, establish a little bit of a run game as well. And then we do, I think, have them addressing the left tackle spot a little bit later on. But other guys that were on the board, Olu Fashanu is another premier left tackle in this class. There are some rising concerns about his ability to handle power at the NFL level. And he's not the best of run blockers, which I think was part of went into what our decision was here with how run heavy the Tennessee Titans have been over the past few years. Granted, that is subject to change now that Mike Vrabel is out, Brian Callahan is in. So like that is definitely subject to change. But with Olu there, we did have them pass on him. Talis Fuaga, the right tackle, is probably the best overall run blocker of any tackle in this class. So he was definitely up there, I think, for contention for this pick. He had a really solid Senior Bowl. He has some really solid tape. And he's really solid in pass protection as well. And then, Rome Odunze, just another like really solid player. So let's move on, though, to their second pick here, where we have them address the cornerback position. Kamari Lassiter was a really nice player out of Georgia. He has all the physical traits you want in a corner. And I think you look at the secondary that the Titans are rolling out there, and it's definitely been subpar at best, I think. And this front seven of this defense has really kept them in a lot of games. And this secondary could definitely stand to improve. They get a guy that has first-round talent here at pick 38 at the top of the second round. And I think he's a plug-and-play starter for them right away.
Oh, yeah. No. I agree with that. And it's something, too, it's going to be curious to kind of see where the Titans go from here because Mike Vrabel, no matter what, and always had that defensive front four and the front seven just as a whole, just put the Titans in a position to win every single week just because that was honestly the best part of their game overall was that defensive front seven.
Yeah.
I think that really helped make up for some of the weaknesses in that secondary. So I think going to get a guy like Kamari Lassiter here, as you said, has first round grade in it. So, but I think this is just such a first round grade heavy draft that there's going to be guys that slip out. And I think you can go get him. I could see potentially even like Enos Rakestraw maybe falling out. Maybe they want to trade up and go and get him. Other positions as well too. Tyler Nubin, the safety for Minnesota, I think he can get in there. And then obviously then too, Kamari Lassiter, as we mentioned as well. And so they could also potentially go receiver here if they end up going tackle with their first overall pick. I could see that going offensive heavy as well, and then getting cornerbacks later on, or potentially even waiting. The reason why I say that, though, is if we go to the next slide, they don't have a third round pick, so they go straight into the fourth pick overall. So maybe it is a potential trade back spot, maybe try and get a third round pick as well. But as I said, we address the tackle position here, get Blake Fisher from Notre Dame. A really solid option. That's a guy that you really like as well, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I like him. I think he only gave up 2 sacks on 11 pressures throughout the entire season at that right tackle spot. But also you have to think teams aren't going to be throwing all the stunts and confusing blitz packages at Joe Alt on the left side because you can do that, but it probably won't work. And so he was getting a lot more attention on that right side. Also, not to mention Sam Hartman holding onto the ball for a good bit of time as well in college football. So I really like him. He is definitely more of a right tackle, but I think he's a plug and play right tackle that you can get here in the 4th round. He's not going to be a Pro Bowler in his first few years, but he's going to be a starting caliber tackle. And then I think they can go after guys like a Trent Brown from New England and kind of get a bridge left tackle this year in at that spot. And then I think you give him to a guy like Brian Callahan, the new head coach, that could potentially coach him up and get him back to that Pro Bowl self that he once was. So from there, adding to this receiver room was another priority. Jacob Cowing from Arizona, a really solid day 3 receiving option. He's a little undersized. He's 5'11", 175, but he has good burst. He gets good natural separation. We kind of saw him a little bit at the senior, or forget if it was a Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl, but whichever one he played well at, and just a really solid day 3 option that could come in and add some good depth to that receiver room. And then from here on out, I will say I would focus more on the positions rather than the actual players, just because at this point, scouting these players this deep, you're really just looking for traits. But Kenny Logan Jr., the safety, Sheridan Jones, the cornerback, and then Mayan Williams, actually the running back out of Ohio State, who I believe was a 4 or 5 star prospect coming out of high school, just had some injuries and didn't live up to his full potential there. But take a flyer on him here. It does look like the Titans are going to be moving on from Derrick Henry this offseason. And I just, to me, I think it's a really nice way to round out this draft. You are pretty balanced, I think, on both sides of the ball, 4 offensive players and 3 defensive players, which I think is probably about right, especially considering the fact that you want to go and build around your young quarterback in Will Levis that they might have gotten a steal with getting him in the 2nd round after what we saw last year. There's definitely a lot more that we need to see, but so far the first impressions have been pretty good.
Yeah. I will say one option here as well as with Derrick Henry moving on, potential. Another reason why maybe they trade back in that 2nd round spot is because I feel like we'll have to see what the combine is like. I feel like 38 is a little too high for some of the running backs. Now we'll have to see how some of those guys test out. I'll see how Jonathan Brooks is doing because I think he potentially could go in there. I think he would fit in really well. But with his ACL injury, that might affect his draft stock. So I think I'm curious to see what they do with that 2nd round pick of theirs. I feel like their 7th pick, I think they're going to be completely fine with staying there because there's going to be a player that I think that they're going to fall in love with. So the 38th pick, though, is going to be interesting because then it's about 70 picks until their next selection. So curious what's going to happen there because that running back position, it is going to be something I think that they are going to address in this draft as well. So in general, though, I think it's a solid draft. A little bit different of a philosophy, though, but with Joe Alt being off the board, we ended up going with Brock Bowers instead of Olu. And then kind of like the way that it worked out, and they still go and get Blake Fisher as well, who I think is a very solid option.
Yeah, I would like to see them maybe go after it's hard because we're not just doing this draft as the Tennessee Titans. We're doing this draft for all 32 teams. And so I would like to maybe see them go after a Javon Foster or a Christian Jones. Christian Jones is more of a right tackle. But he's like, to me, a slightly higher inversion than Blake Fisher. But Javon Foster is the left tackle out of Missouri that performed really well at the Shrine or the Senior Bowl. And for me, I think that would be a really good guy on day 3 to target if they end up going with the first 2 picks that we did. So I do think at 38, there was a big run of tackles before 38. And the Titans just, one, we weren't doing trades in this mock draft, but also they didn't necessarily have the capital to move up at 38 if they wanted to target one of those tackles. So just an interesting situation for the Titans as a whole. I really like what they have going for them into the 2024 season. I think they could potentially compete for that division if Will Levis develops. But at the very least, I think they'll have some really solid pieces moving on into 2025 and can continue to build this roster. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of this Tennessee Titans 7-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you do differently? And on that, we'll see you guys next time.